This is why Petr Yan has a near 0% chance to win a rematch versus Merab Dvalishvili. Obviously, Petr Yan this weekend is coming off a win versus Marcus McGee, but this fight made me realize that it is near impossible stylistically for Petr Yan to beat Merab. And in this video, I want to explain why. So Petr Yan, since losing to Morav, right, he's on a 3-fight win streak with wins over Song Yadong, Davison Figueiredo, and Marcus McGee. Some pretty solid wins. It's always great in the UFC when Petr Yan's winning and not losing. Obviously, he's a fan favorite, one of the best boxer at bantamweight, right? Former bantamweight champion, but we kind of have to look at the X's and O's of why it's near impossible for Petr Yan to defeat Merab Dvalishvili. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, genuinely, unless Morav had a fluke injury, I just don't see a way he beats Morav stylistically. Petr Yan, since fighting Merab Dvalishvili, has fought Song Yadong, Davison Figueiredo, and Marcus McGee. Now, all three of these guys are pretty good competition, right? Davison Figueiredo, when he faced him, was on a 3-fight win streak. Marcus McGee was undefeated in the UFC, and Song Yadong is a perennial contender in that bantamweight division, top 5 guy, right? But the issue lies in this. None of those guys have the cardio of Morav, and none of those guys have the grappling of Morav. None of those guys are going to shoot as many takedowns as Morav is, and none of those guys are going to have the same cardio Morav has in a 5-round fight. So in my opinion, Petr Yan has not really faced another fighter that's going to be able to test him to get ready for Morav. I think Petr Yan needed to face a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, beat him, and show amazing grappling like upgrades to his game, and then maybe we could be talking about a world where Petr Yan can actually defeat Merab Dvalishvili, because in their first fight, right, Petr Yan 50-45, or no, Morav 50-45 Petr Yan. He won every single round, and get ready for this, guys, because this is an insane stat. Morav shot a record 49 takedowns on Petr Yan, 49 takedowns. When you consider that it's a 25-minute fight, that means Morav shot 2 takedowns on average every single minute of the fight. That is insane. And he only got 11 of 49 of them, but let's be real, Morav's not shooting to take Petr Yan down, right? He's shooting to make contact and exhaust him over and over and over. And what this fight against Marcus McGee showed me is that Petr Yan's kind of regressed a little bit, you know? He still looks good, he still looks like himself, but he's not throwing as many kicks. He looks like he's lost a little bit of speed, not too much, just a little bit. And man, I'm sorry, but if your game is not upgrading and you're kind of the same guy, what do you think is going to happen if you fight a better version of Morav? The same exact thing is going to happen. And the fact that Petr Yan narrowly lost the first round to Marcus McGee, he won a 29-28 on all 3 scorecards. In typical Petr Yan fashion, he lost the first round, right? And he won the last 2. You cannot afford to lose the first, second, third round against Morav. Even Umar, who won the first 2 rounds, still lost the fight because he gassed out and Morav was able to take over at the end of the fight. It's just, Merab Dvalishvili is a guy that has inhuman cardio, whether that be because of some vitamins he takes during training camp. Maybe he's hanging out with TJ Dillashaw these days, if you know what I mean, but he's not a guy that you can afford to download data. And the reason I say that Petr Yan has a near 0% chance against Merab Dvalishvili is because Petr Yan has to, as we call it, download the data, right? He has to get in the fight, and he kind of has to figure you out, get your timing, but there's none of that with Morav. With Morav, it's all guns a-blazing. The second the ref says fight, Morav's going to sprint across the octagon, and he's going to immediately try to shoot takedowns, especially on a guy like Petr Yan, who he knows is a rhythm fighter that needs to get going, and Morav's never going to let him get going. So what ends up happening is exactly what happens in the first fight. Petr Yan's stuck in first gear, and he never gets out of first gear, and Morav's in third, fourth, and fifth gear the entire fight, and he dominates him, and he takes him down over and over and over. And if we're talking about Petr Yan's skill set, that's why I think he has a near 0% chance of beating Morav, because what do you need to beat Merab Dvalishvili, right? You need to have a danger factor to you. You need to be able to latch up a quick submission, right? Like, you need to be able to KO Morav, right? Well, Petr Yan has pillow hands, and he hasn't had a finish since the Jose Aldo fight half a decade ago. It's been 5 years since Petr Yan got a finish in the UFC. And I'm sorry, man, but in order to beat Morav, you need to have finishing ability. You're not going to outskill Morav through 5 rounds. I do not see a world where Petr Yan goes out there and out techniques and outworks and outskills Morav for 5 rounds. It just won't happen, man. And I think majority of fans know this. And I know that most people agree with me on this take. This is not a hot take. This is a very cold take, but I'm speaking to the fans that love Petr Yan, and I want them to come to reality and realize that there's little to no chance that he wins a fight against Morav. There's just, stylistically, it's genuinely near impossible. Like, I think Petr Yan loses to 2 fighters at bantamweight. I think he loses to Umar, and I think he loses to Morav. I think he beats the rest. I think he beats O'Malley in a rematch, and I think he beats every other fighter ranked at bantamweight. But Umar, it would be a good competitive fight, but I do think Umar would eke out a decision against him. I think Umar is a little bit younger. He's a little bit closer to his prime. I'm not saying Petr Yan's washed, but he does look a little bit slower. He's throwing less kicks. He's looking, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Petr Yan looks like a fighter that's the same fighter every time he steps in there. I'm not seeing a guy that's adding insane new wrinkles to his game. He has the same great hip tosses, judo throws, whatever you want to call them. He has the same amazing boxing, right? And he's just very technically sound, but like, I'm not seeing him add more wrestling into his game. I'm not seeing him attempt submissions. Sure, he went for a Kimura against Marcus McGee, but I mean, he let it go nearly as soon as he went for it. It's like Petr Yan doesn't take a lot of risk in his fights. He fights very technically sound and safe. He has a high tight guard, and I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't see a world where Petr Yan's style ever works against Morav. Morav is tailor-made to 50-45 or 49-46 Petr Yan every single time they fight, because Petr Yan lacks the necessities to beat Morav, which is KO power, submission ability, cardio, and takedown defense. And he has one of those. He has cardio, right? But I think his takedown defense, when we're talking about Petr Yan, I know he hasn't been taken down in his career a ton, but like outside of Morav, but like nobody really attempts to take Petr Yan down. Most of the guys that fight him want to keep it standing. And as shown by Morav, if you shoot takedowns, you will get him down eventually. And Petr Yan isn't great off his back, shown against the Morav fight. He just gets taken down and kind of gets bullied, you know? And it's kind of unfortunate, man, if you're Petr Yan, right, that you have to be in the same generation as a guy like Morav, who just has inhuman-like cardio, who can shoot literally 50 takedowns on you, 50-45 you, to the point where people are saying that Petr Yan, despite being on a 3-fight win streak, doesn't deserve a fight against Morav in a rematch, and I disagree with that, because he got dominated so bad that nobody wants to see it. And you know what? I think the same outcome happens in the second fight. I'm not seeing performances out of Petr Yan that tells me, wow, man, he's really going to turn it up in the Morav rematch and beat him. But I still think you cannot look at a fight and say just because he lost the first fight that he'll never get another fight again. I don't agree with that. I think that Morav is going to beat Corey Sandhagen, and then from there you do a rematch with Petr Yan, and that's the fight to make. Or you can do Petr Yan versus Umar, but Umar is rumored to fight Bautista, so that probably wouldn't work either. But respect to Petr Yan, man. He took on a guy Marcus McGee, who's a little bit older, even though he's a newer guy in the UFC, right? Marcus McGee is 35 years old, whereas Petr Yan's 32. Petr Yan's been in the UFC since like 2019, 2018, 6-7 years now. And Marcus McGee, I think he made his UFC debut in 2023, but he's still an older guy. He's 35, and he was able to land some decent shots on Petr Yan, but not that matters. I don't think Morav's a better striker than Petr Yan, but it doesn't matter, man, because Morav's so ruthless with his takedowns that it opens up his striking. So it's like Morav is even showing like new levels to his game. Who's to say Morav doesn't submit Petr Yan in a rematch? You know, he just submitted Sean O'Malley. Who's to say that he can't go out there and submit Petr Yan and bully him again? And it's just unfortunate that I genuinely think that Petr Yan versus Morav, Petr Yan has like a 1% chance to win, and Morav has like a 99%. And if you disagree with that, tell me how Petr Yan gets it done. Is he going to knock out Morav? No, he hasn't had a finish in 5 years. Is he going to submit Morav? No, he doesn't have a single submission win in the UFC as far as I'm aware. Is he going to out-technique Morav over 5 rounds? No, he'll get taken down over and over repeatedly. Is he going to out-cardio Morav? That's literally impossible. Morav has the best cardio in UFC history. So what, if you think Petr Yan's going to win the rematch, which I know a lot of people don't, but if you do, what exactly is Petr Yan going to do in order to offset Morav's takedowns? What is he going to do to stop Morav from coming forward, literally nonstop the entire fight? Because guess what? Morav doesn't have anything to worry about against Petr Yan. Against O'Malley, he has to worry about a one-shot knockout shot, right? Against Corey Sandhagen, maybe he has to worry about a flying knee. When he's fighting Petr Yan, Morav has no worry in the world because Petr Yan, unfortunately, has no knockout power. So his best chance is to catch Merab with a knee, catch Merab with a front kick to the face. But that's just not going to happen, man, because whenever you're getting pushed back against the fence and taken down over and over, and you're getting demoralized, and it's already round 3, and Petr Yan's lost the first 2, and he's looking up at the clock, and he's asking his corner, what do I do? This guy's dominating me again. There's nothing you can do, because stylistically, Morav beats Petr Yan 100 out of 100 times. That's just the reality we live in, boys. So if you're a Petr Yan fan, I hate to break it to you, but he's never going to be able to beat Merab Dvalishvili. And yeah, watching the fight with Petr Yan versus Marcus McGee this weekend, it really showed me that Petr Yan is still good. He's still top 5. He's still arguably the second or third best fighter in the division, but there's just stylistically, there's no way he beats Merab, and I'll die on that hill. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with my take? I'm out, guys, and peace.